Did you know that to produce milk, cows are forcibly impregnated? Then, when their calves are born, they're taken away from the mother so the milk meant for the baby can be sold instead. Separation of mother and baby usually happens within hours of the calf being born. The mother cow cries for days for her baby. Then this cycle happens over again until her body gives out and she's slaughtered. This is the everyday reality of the dairy industry. People who are vegetarians who care about animals say they don't feel right about eating meat. But cheese, milk, butter, we stop short when it comes to these. For some reason, dairy just seems to be different for a lot of people. Somewhere along the way, milk somehow became ingrained in our everyday lives. We tend to associate it with motherhood, nourishment, and growing. Remember Got Milk? Advertisements seen on television and in magazines only reinforce this idea, making it seem like dairy was necessary and even wholesome. We've all seen the commercials and labels with green pastures and seemingly happy cows. Spoiler alert, they're not. We separate dairy from animal harm. Why? I think it's because with something like meat production, we are actually killing the animal and their body is the product. But with dairy, it's more obscure. Animal harm is visible in meat consumption, but it's hidden in dairy production, and the separation allows people to emotionally disconnect dairy from that harm. A common misconception is that cows just naturally all the time produce milk, so taking it from them is obviously harmless because it's something they produce anyway. But that's not how milk production works, like at all. Cows don't just produce milk without a pregnancy. Lactation isn't spontaneous or constant, it's triggered by reproduction. In the dairy industry, cows are artificially inseminated when able to become pregnant. When she gives birth, her calf is then taken from her within the first few hours to days of life. The milk she produces for the calf is redirected to humans, rather than nursing her calf like it was meant to. Removing the calf is extremely traumatic for both the mother and the baby. The mother cries for days for her baby, and the calf, confused and hungry, calls back. This cycle of pregnancy, birth, separation, and milking repeats several times over the cow's shortened lifespan until the production declines and she is no longer considered profitable. And then there are the calves. What happens to them? Female calves are typically used as more dairy cows. When old enough, she will be artificially inseminated, give birth, have her calf and her milk taken from her, and repeat the whole process over again, just like her mother. Male calves are seen as, quote, surplus, since they are unable to produce milk. Male calves are usually either raised for beef, raised for veal, or euthanized. Male calves sold for beef production are usually sent to feedlots, facilities that can hold up to tens of thousands of cattle, and are confined and grain-fed so they gain weight and can be slaughtered as soon as possible. Some male calves are sold for veal and kept in crates so small they can barely move while being fed nutrient-poor diets designed to keep their flesh pale and tender. Finally, if other options aren't viable, the calf is euthanized shortly after birth. Milk production requires pregnancy, and that pregnancy produces calves, and any dairy farm must decide what to do with those calves. People think dairy cows get to live out their natural lives. They absolutely don't. A dairy cow's life is around 4 to 6 years. By contrast, a cow's potential natural lifespan is much longer, around 15 to 20 years. Intense milk production can lead to health issues like infected udders and legs that can't support them. When milk production declines or the health issues begin to become too costly to manage, the cows are then culled from the herd. These cows, whose milk production has dropped, are referred to as, quote, spent cows. Spent, like used up batteries. Most of the time, they are then sent to slaughterhouses. These animals are seen only as commodities that the dairy industry tries to squeeze a little more milk out of so they can make more money. A cow's value in the dairy industry is directly tied to how much milk she produces, and as that production declines, so does her worth in the system. Dairy doesn't involve killing animals for the point of consumption, but the animals are only kept as long as they remain productive and profitable, and then they are removed. The dairy industry doesn't avoid killing animals, it just delays it. Some common responses from people when discussing this are things like, I buy local, or I only buy humane, grass-fed dairy. Small scale can change some conditions. For example, a small farm might provide more space and less crowding, and those differences matter in day to day welfare. You can change housing, enrichment, and how animals are treated, and you can minimize stress and some forms of confinement because those differ from farm to farm. But there are some things you can't change. You can't change the fact that milk requires pregnancy. Pregnancy means calves, and that milk goes to us, not them. If a calf is allowed to nurse freely, the farm isn't producing the same volume of milk for sale to be profitable. Even on small farms, calves are still separated or their nursing restricted. Local, organic, pasture raised, and grass fed labels are all often used in an attempt to make you feel better about your purchase and imply a better life for the cow. But they cannot change the fact of repeated reproduction, separation, and the animals are kept only as long as they are productive. Who do these labels really help? Do they help the animal, or do they just make us feel better? Some suffering in dairy varies from farm to farm, but a big part of it is just how the system works, and that is the part that makes dairy hard to defend. Dairy is typically defended so fiercely because it's ingrained in our culture, because questioning it requires challenging ourselves and our habits. When we say we care about animals but actively participate in a system that causes them harm, it causes a disconnect in values and behavior. That's the problem with dairy. The harm to animals is a requirement for it to even exist. It requires harming animals, the exact thing we thought we were avoiding. Once we realize that the harm is baked in, it becomes harder and harder to give it a pass as an ethical exception.